This is a CJSR podcast.
Volunteer-powered,
Listener-supported,
campus and community
Radio.
podcast.
Podcast.
Radio and podcasts.
Everything that we want to know about our food, because we care about what we eat, without traceability, it's impossible to have that.
Hi, my name is Melania Antoszko, and you're listening to That's Food. That's Food is a podcast from CJSR, Edmonton's campus and community radio station, handmade with love by University of Alberta students, telling the backstory to food in Edmonton, one meal at a time. It's Sunday, which for most of us means grocery day. I'm buying some kale for a salad I want to make later, and it's all out. Maybe next time I shouldn't leave this for 9 p.m. I look to the left and I see one last bunch in the organic section. But what does organic even mean? How do I know they're not scamming me? They're so expensive. Now I'm walking through the meal aisle and I'm looking for something for my dinner. I'm reading the labels. One says sustainable beef. What does this mean? How can beef really be sustainable? How do I know this is not just good marketing? In today's episode, I interviewed Hubert Lau, CEO of TrustBix, Edmonton-based agri-food company that is striving to become the most trusted and largest source of third-party food traceability and sustainability information worldwide. In this episode, I spoke with Hubert on food traceability and what it really means, and I found some answers to the questions I had in the grocery store. I wanted to look into the theme of food traceability, and I was wondering, your opinion of why is food traceability important?
I think the best way to look at it is that most of the time living in Canada, we don't think of food traceability, food safety is a real problem. We always look overseas, like to say China or to Africa and those type of places. But CBC did a series in their marketplace about food fraud and mislabeling and so forth. In Canada, there's a huge amount of fraudulent activities that happen either on purpose or by accident. So farmers market, where the farmers actually did not grow the products, they actually bought it at a store, took it over to farmers market, and then claimed that they grew it, right? Or you've got fish that are mislabeled, so consumers are paying a lot more than what they should be. And then when you talk about export markets, that becomes an even bigger problem now. Like when we import food from other countries, do we really know what it is and where it's been and what's the history on it? And then if we look at in terms of especially like protein products, were the animals handled well? Did they have a good life? Were they abused? And then when we look at things like hormone-free or antibiotic-free and all those type of things, without traceability, you cannot make those claims, right? So everything that we want to know about our food, because we care about what we eat, without traceability, it's impossible to have that.
Yeah, especially at farmers markets and stuff like that, where there's kind of people going there for the sustainability and for the treatment. If there's no way for people to actually know, it's really easy for them to scam you.
Exactly. So that's why it's hard. And what's actually fascinating is when we first got in, we thought, wow, this is a no-brainer. Everybody wants to know this. So we jumped on trying to do traceability solutions, and I'll tell you, we lost a ton of money trying to do that. And the reason why is that people want traceability, they want to know where it came from, but very few people actually want to pay for it. I mean, people say, "Oh, well, we should just know. We should just have these ability to understand this." But I say, "Okay, well, are you willing to pay more for it?" Most people just by traceability or food safety, they're gonna say no. That the government should deal with that.
Yeah, the government's problem.
The government should do it. That's their problem. That's their job, right? And this is why we pay our taxes, right? And that's true. Actually, it's very true. And that was our first lesson in this world. So what we realized was sustainability was the real question, not traceability, sustainability. And in our field, the sustainability is defined a little bit beyond just about the environment, because a lot of people think of sustainability, say, oh, was it good for the world? Was it good for the planet? That type of things. And yes, that's one pillar. But the other pillars is Was it good for the community that raised those food products for us? Okay, so are the farmers in the communities, are they well looked after? It's about the people around that business. And then there's, of course, if it's protein based, then the animals, were the animal handling done properly, and did they have a good life when they were alive? And then finally, is it financially sustainable? Meaning that I think a lot of us don't appreciate that the more we demand to know about our food, who's giving us that information? Well, we're actually telling the farmers, oh, by the way, we are now not trusting what you used to do and what you used to say. We are questioning your practices, even though you've been doing this for decades and decades, or even hundreds of years in some cases. And now we are self-proclaimed experts, so we want to demand all this information, and you are going to give it to us for free. So it's kind of like if tomorrow you go to work and your boss says to you, I want you to do 50% more work and no extra pay. That's what we ask of our farmers right now. So if I say, go pound sand, I don't care. Like, just go away. I'm not doing this for you unless you pay me. And so where our business is different is that we started analyzing that and say, can we create a situation where we can have the farmers rewarded for what we want? And if sustainability is what we want, then that's what we have to go after.
So can you walk me through how TrustBix started?
TrustBix actually is an amalgamation of two organizations that we took public back in April of last year. The first company is called Viewtrack Technologies. It was a husband-wife team that started back in the late 1990s to help address the whole BSC scare, the mad cow scare. And they did fairly well, and eventually, I think my interpretation is they kind of got burnt out, and it was time to move on. And so some of the people around the company had brought us in to basically restructure the company and then take it forward to the next step. So that's how I got introduced to it. And I'll have to say, prior to that introduction, I had no idea that I was ever going to be in the agriculture industry. And one of the people that led the introductions was actually Brett Wilson from the Dragon's Den. And the funny thing is, I don't watch TV much, so I had absolutely no idea what Dragon's Den was, or why it was even significant, why people around our office was all excited. And and so that was kind of funny. The second company was actually an initiative that was through the Canadian Cattlemen's Association, and they had created something called the Beef Info Exchange System, so BIX for short. And it was great idea, but again, the Cattlemen's Association is not an IT company, so they did a great effort trying to get it off the ground and so forth, but it just needed more. It needed extra leadership and focus and understanding of product development and so forth. So approached them and bought the rights to the program and created a new company, of which the Canadian Cattlemen's Association was part of the ownership at first. And then as we went public and we amalgamated both Viewtrack and Bixco together, that's when we said, okay, it's time to take it to the world, because we're enjoying successes that the world needs to know about. And we need to capitalize properly. And as a public market, it gives opportunities for everybody to participate if they love our story.
So when you started, did you think that it would get to this point?
No. The original start was that we were going to take it over, run it for about 6 months, restructure it, get some management in there, and off it goes. And as my business partner and I were going through it, after 6 months, we're like, gee whiz, the people here are fantastic. Like the cattle industry is fantastic. The people are just wonderful individuals, and there's a lot of opportunity. So we just kept going. And when we went public, Ted and I had to make a decision. One of us had to do it full time. So I sold my IT company to run as the president CEO now, and Ted still has his own software company. And so he is the vice chairman of our board. So we're still all working very closely together.
I think it'll be very interesting for the listeners to hear how the BIX system and the Viewtrack kind of work. Like a little bit of technical, but not too much.
Technical, but not too much. Think of it that Viewtrack originally was products that you would use on site, like on a farm and so forth. So Viewtrack had a software called Beeftrack that helps cattle producers to track their animals. right? And what they fed them and so forth. And we also have something called feedlot solutions. So for the feedlots, this is where the animals are getting fattening up, to be finished. That those feedlots can manage their business as well. And then as the animals will go to the auction marts to be bought and sold, I would say roughly about 80% of the auction marts in Canada and about 30-ish% in the US use our software to run the auctions and to do all the settlements and calculations. So it really was good to kind of have that information flow through and help out the operations. But what was missing is the supply chain management. How do you add value to the products through the whole supply chain? So now you want to get it from basically what we call gate to plate, from the producers right up to the plate. And how do we track that information and how do we create value in that? So that's where the BIX side came in and played that role for us. McDonald's in 2015 came to the world and said, we are wondering if it's even possible to verify beef production. And is it can we track in an open supply chain where we could have thousands or tens of thousands of farms all feeding information, and can we track that production practice? Is it possible? So they actually picked Canada to be the first pilot site in the world, and BIX being the platform. And that was actually when we took over BIX. And so after the 1-year pilot, we proved that it is possible to do that type of tracking using our technology. Then it stalled. Nothing happened. Like, it was the rah, great, we did it. And, the Canadian beef industry was happy, McDonald's was happy. Nothing happened after that. And the reason why it didn't happen was we said to them, there's not going to be adoption or market excitement unless we pay the producers, like the farmers. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you have to pay, not the government or anybody else. You as the retailers have to pay. So today, going on beyond 2 years now, is this Canadian certified sustainable beef program, which basically, if you go to McDonald's and you buy their Angus burger, you'll see a logo that says Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. There's a logo there, right? What that logo actually represents is that McDonald's is one of the retailers who are paying into a system so that the production of the animals that goes through sustainable practices, like so sustainable farms, are rewarded every quarter with a financial reward for producing the products that we all enjoy, right? And we're the technology that tracks it in the middle of all that. So when we go to, and Loblaw is part of this, Cactus Club is part of this, and the Original Joe's, Swiss Chalet, Harvey's, and Chops just signed up. These are all retailers who are saying sustainable practices matter. We want to have sustainable beef, and that we want our consumers to be proud of what they eat. Okay, and this actually has become now where the world is saying don't eat meat or don't eat beef because it is bad for the planet and so forth. We can, as Canadians, say we are the first country in the world to have a certified sustainable beef supply chain. And what that means is that we can enjoy our beef. We have permission to enjoy beef. And why is that? It's because it's sustainably raised.
Is there like a governing body that looks like what does sustainable mean in beef production?
There is a roundtable called the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. It's an industry collaboration. So on the one side, you've got the farmers, the producer groups and so forth. And the other side, you've got like the World Wildlife Foundation. We always laugh, the tree huggers on the one side, and then you get the producers on the other side, and then you get government and private, like the retailers and everybody else. So everyone got together, and it was a 5-year plus journey to identify the indicators of what is sustainable beef. It is based on international standards as well. But because of that work by the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, we as Canadians are known as the world leaders in sustainable beef definitions and practice. And we've got an auditing body called the Verified Beef Production Plus. They are the auditors that goes on farm to make sure that they have done a third-party physical audit to ensure that the claims are true.
Yeah. And that's really important for consumers to actually believe in the claims and have that stamp. Because I know I've seen it before and I'm like, what does this even mean?
Exactly. I think part of the problem is that we do all this work, but we don't do good storytelling, right?
I was reading this one article on the New York Times about how in New York, I don't know if like here, but more people have been buying from farmers, like directly from farmers. And I was wondering if COVID has impacted people's want for sustainability in beef.
The indication we got is that beef sales went off the charts, right? Like you go to Costco, you got all these places, you couldn't even buy meat, and I know my family was the same thing because we eat quite a bit of beef, and it was like, well, we'll just buy whatever's on the shelf because they were empty. So the demand's there, but what we are seeing is that buying local is definitely on people's mind. Sustainability is on people's mind in the sense of it's a safe. It's a safe. Like I want to buy something that I know that COVID hasn't hit it, and also the buying patterns, like where possible, people are not trying not to go to grocery stores. They're trying to order online and so forth. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That what the New Yorkers are doing, I think, is happening all over Canada as well, which is we care about the local, and we care about if it's sustainable.
Yeah. Do you think those consumer behaviors are going to stay for the next couple of years, or is it just going to die down?
So I can only speak personally. I don't want to speak on behalf of anybody else, but personally, I think it's great if it stays. I think what we've done COVID is the first time in over 100 years, what I would consider a modern world, that the whole world shut down, and we had to rethink about what's important in our lives, right? Who do we spend time with? What should we be doing? What's the what are we eating? Why are we eating it? How we do business? What type of business? How do I do my investment? So forth. Like it's a chance for us to reflect as individuals, as families, as communities of what matters. And I think the buying pattern is just a new way of just going to be the new business model, right? And we talked to a lot of small business owners, restaurant owners in Edmonton, and many of them were thinking, yeah, you know what? Now that we've gone through COVID, we just rather do skip the dishes type business. Like just do the delivery business versus having the full-blown restaurant and the overhead and all that. And they actually make more money, and they're able to deliver a better product in their minds. And they take out the risk so that they don't have to be out of business. And they're giving customers what they want. With any disease, it can always come back in the second and third wave. So how do you not change your behavior long term?
How have you seen the food supply chain, like specifically meat, adapt during COVID?
Well, there's definitely changes in facilities. So we get to read the news about the packing plants being shut down and so forth, and workers dying. So I think the food production is definitely going to have to change, right? Supply, lots of talk about online sales. How do we sell direct? How do we sell online? So that's going to happen. How will this all play out at the end? I'm not sure, but what I do see is the early adopters are changing. The retailers are changing. I think the agenda for online sales has gone way up. But kudos to existing stores, like things like Loblaws had already rolled out online purchases. Like they had an app that you can order your stuff. Yeah. I know we buy TNT. TNT has that too, right? Those who have foreseen the change already are now maximizing on those, and those who did not, I think, are jumping on and saying, okay, how do we get our products out through the virtual methods?
Do you see any big changes in the food system in 5-10 years?
For sure. I mean, even without COVID, they're constantly changing from packaging, right? Like we talk about plastics, right? So we're trying to get away from plastic packaging. I know when I was at the World Economic Forum last year, Nestle was saying that their goal is that within the next 5 years, they're hoping that all of their packaging are biodegradable and or edible. So in terms of food production practices and so forth, is that I am kind of curious how smaller farms are going to play out. Like, are they just going to try and sell more direct to the consumer? So people who live in certain areas would just buy in their own area for the basic essentials, and then the nicer things at the bigger stores and so forth. So the production, I think, is going to change, as well as I think the accommodation of exports. Like what type of food are going to be more desirable for other countries. So pork, for instance, because of the COVID and the African swine fever, is that countries like China are desperate for more products. So from our Canadian side is how would we want to address that, and can we do it in a higher premiums? So by giving them more of what they want, maybe adding the extra traceability and the sustainable practices, can we actually ask for more money for those? And if the answer is yes, then the practices would change accordingly to meet those demands in the higher premiums. So, and that comes to food handling, the food safety, how the plants are going to process those, the packaging. I think all of those are being reviewed now, saying what is the future? Because after this pandemic, what's the next one now? The world is so connected that it's very easy to have another pandemic.
So my last question is, so how can listeners become more knowledgeable on what they're eating?
I think the challenge I have is that there is a ton of information out there, unfortunately. I would say that if in the beef industry, thinkbeef.com is a great website. Come on our website, TrustBix.com, and or follow us on social media. So we try to point people to the right direction. Our goal is to be the trusted neutral party. So we don't really try to take any sides. We don't sell or buy products. So I think a lot of it is looking at it from the angles who is truly neutral and how they fund it. So some groups claim to be neutral, but they're actually funded by certain lobby groups, right? And that's just a front. So I would say if you're gonna get your information from the right sources and the direct sources. The other one that I have enjoyed spending time looking at more and more and following more and more is the World Economic Forum. There's many of the young leaders, so probably many of the listeners here should actually look at participating at the World Economic Forum. It opens the whole world to you. You get to meet all kinds of leaders, and when you are in those type of arenas, you will get to meet the business leaders, the political leaders, and the future innovators like yourselves who are listening. And so the WEF is a great source of information and innovations as well.
I'll definitely look into those personally. But thank you so much for coming in. I guess we're not actually coming in today. I can see you over Zoom.
Good, thank you.
Guess what time it is? It's snack fact time! According to Alberta Beef, Alberta has 40% of the cows, 70% of the feedlot capacity, and 70% of the processing capacity in Canada. That's a lot of cows. They don't call it cattle country for nothing. And that's it for this episode of That's Food. Today's episode was produced by me, Melania Antoszko, and special thanks to my guest, Hubert Lau from TrustBix. Our music is by Doug Hoyer. You can find all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, and on our website at that'sfood.transistor.fm. You can contact us at that'sfood@cgsr.com. We are That's Food CGSR on Facebook and on Instagram. That's Food is produced at CGSR in Edmonton on Treaty 6 territory. But is it food? That's food!